Hi, I'm Robert Wu. I appreciate you spending the next 10 to 15 minutes with me and hope you can benefit from the content. I'm a decision and risk supply chain practitioner with over 10 years experience in energy and medical device industries. I have a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering and an MBA in Finance and Supply Chain. Modeling is a passion of mine and a great tool to reflect an operation with multiple inputs. There are many drivers could produce the same results, and the same driver can produce a variation of expected results. Let's dive into the topic. Here are the topics I will cover. I plan to address the scope in introductions, then I will address the primary goals and the expected benefits. Then I will walk you through an example with you from a deterministic case to a probabilistic case. Then I will demonstrate the benefit of interactive probabilistic model to gain insight. The scope of a supply chain operation is often to meet a metric that can be meeting a demand curve, debottlenecking, or a lean management. Modeling is a great planning tool. In these sessions, I will talk more about deterministic model and probabilistic model. Deterministic inputs offer a snapshot of our potential outcomes. Incorporating variables of probabilistic ranges in modeling, I can offer insights on key inputs, show the likely output range, and encourage discussion among stakeholders to evaluate the decisions. The primary goal of modeling is often to ID the key inputs and its effect to validate the scope and prioritize resource deployments. Let's go through a case, the meeting the demand curve. In this case study, I focus on meeting the demand curve, this particular curve right here. The process starts with unconstrained demand curve. This is typically from marketing or sales, reflecting a situation with unlimited supply of finished goods. Supply chain and operation have the task to make it happen. When we start considering other variables, such as transit time, production starting time, yield, disruptions, cost, the supply curve shape changes. We start to reflect a reality and also to identify inputs that enable us to get close to the goal. Let's dive into this example from a deterministic perspective. The table on the left here accounts for the inputs of variables. There are production costs, starting time, payment discount, transit, production yield. The table on the right reflects the output from the input on the left. In this example, the financial metric like operating cash flow, margin of 76%, those are good results. The operation metric is somewhat imbalanced. It shows that we only meet the demand curve of 68%, supplier 1 utilization is only 64%, while supply 2 utilization is 100%. What can we do? There are many variables to evaluate. Now, what you see here is the range inputs and the impact on the metric. The range inputs basically reflecting the ranges of all the variables that's shown in the earlier table. For example, production cost instead of 300 could be ranged from 250 to 400. Production starter time could be 4 period ahead, 5 period ahead, or 7 period ahead. When we vary the inputs according to the range, the metrics like operating free cash flow will change. I record the change and show it in the tornado graph on the right here. In this particular case, demand allocation to supplier 1, production cost to supplier 1, product start time prior to launch of supplier 1 are influential. Focusing on these three factors result in most impact on the operating free cash flow. On one hand, when the demand allocation to supplier is high, showing the orange here, the free cash flow increased to almost 900,000. If it's low, it swings to the almost 600,000 range. From the tornado chart, the demand allocation is most influential, followed by the production cost and production start time. Operating free cash flow and demand curve coverage are correlated. Meeting the demand curve with a reasonable cost will lead to higher operating free cash flow. That's why I decided to show this metric. These three variables right here already give us many outcomes. What if we permutate all these variables by 1,000 times? What will the results look like? When I permutate the inputs of supplier 1 and supplier 2 over here, I generate a cumulative outcome on a metric, in this case, the amount of demand curve met. On one hand, the lowest coverage is about 59% with all the variables considered. On the other hand, the high end is 70% coverage of the demand curve. So if we cannot narrow the range of variables, the result is that the entire curve from 59% to 70%. Now if we start changing the inputs and narrow the ranges, we expect the coverage to increase from 75% to 90%. The orange curve shown here reflects as reference case as a curve you saw in the earlier slides. The blue curve is a result when I start shifting the variables. For example, in this case, basically shifting the demand to the high, allocation to the high. Demand curve is an operation metric. Let's see the impact on other metric as well. Demand curve met is an operation metric. Change in operation inputs like demand allocation, production start time will modify this metric. Operation free cash flow is a financial metric and operation metric. Change in any of these inputs will modify a curve. Now I will show you the impact on the curve, on the model itself. What you see here is the model. Now I'm going to start changing the operation metric right here. And you'll see the changes to the curve and the number down below here. Go back to 50%, like the likely demand cases. Now you'll see that the curve nearly overlap with each other. The reason that they are not completely overlap because I changed the input on the start time. That's why the curve move. And if we start, as shown earlier, if we start the production earlier, we get more coverage, right? And basically that's what's shown here. Now, if we start changing the variable again, let's just say 80% go to supply 1, what will it look like? Now the curve starts separating. Now if you narrow other ranges, let's just say if a production cost is $300, $300 I mean, $300. Right. Now, since production cost is also influential variable, now basically by narrow the range to none, the curve become more linear instead of wider, right? So these are the things that stakeholder can use to evaluate that if they want to meet a certain goal, for example, 85% of the demand curve, what variable do they have to change to focus and to meet that curve, right? If they think this tail ends too much, what else they can do? So they can play with the modeling and encourage discussion with the stakeholders. Probabilistic modeling can add values to a business, identify focus area to achieve a target. I can help to bring clarity of actions and to achieve your goal more effectively. I appreciate your time. If I can provide additional clarities, here's my contact information.